Hello everybody. So today I would like to go through 6 different stocks that are involved in solar in one way or another, mostly residential solar. As you know, on this channel I've been covering Enphase quite a bit, and Enphase is a tier 1 position for me. It is one of my favorite stocks out there, but I think it's important that I follow also other stocks in the space and that I can try to compare them a little bit. So keep in mind, this is my usual Friday video spreadsheet where I rank companies or rate companies based on growth and how much you're paying for that growth. So essentially, when you see this number right here, which is enterprise value over gross profit over revenue growth, a stock I deem to be undervalued, I need to be a good price, the lower it is trading. And typically I'd like the stock to be trading at less than a 0.5. So we would see, per my spreadsheet, Tesla, a little bit expensive right now. First Solar, definitely very expensive right now. I do not understand how First Solar can be so expensive. It's as expensive as Nvidia per my spreadsheet here. And other companies in the solar space are pretty inexpensive, I would say. SolarEdge, SunPower, and ARRY Technologies are all pretty inexpensive stocks. This is a spin on the PEG ratio of Peter Lynch, price to earnings to growth, except I do it with enterprise value because I want to take into account debt. I use gross profit because all of these companies I believe to be optimized for gross profit, and I use revenue growth because earnings growth applies to companies that are more mature. These companies are young, and I don't believe it's fair to judge them based on earnings just yet for any of these companies. And why would you want to invest in the solar megatrend? Well, there's not gonna be enough time to cover all of this, but essentially it is the cheapest technology for electricity. There's no cheaper technology for electricity. It's using straight fusion in the sky and turning it into moving electrons in silicon. That's like the most direct way to do it, and that is the cheapest technology, which is why I believe this technology will get adopted and this technology will win. This technology, in my view, will disrupt utilities over time, in the sense that if there are solar panels on roofs, there's no need for utilities anymore because most people have well enough roof space to power their whole home as well as to power their electric cars if they have 2 or even more than 2. Tony Seba actually estimates it's between 7 and 9 times the roof space on a house, on an average house. 7 to 9 times the energy needs. So it's pretty insane. We have enough space for solar. And to invest in this megatrend, in my view, one has to believe that most single-family homes out there will have a solar roof, which is my belief. Will it be in 10 years? Will it be in 15 years? I don't know. But the trend has started. The US right now, it's about 4%. 4% of single-family homes in the US have solar. And in Europe, it's at about 10%. And I go much more in depth into everything related to the solar thesis in the first part of this video that I published last week, entitled The Bull Case for Enphase, the Ultimate Analysis. You will see in this video, if you watch it, I'll have it in the comment section. If you watch it in this video, I spend about 30 minutes talking about the megatrend of solar and why solar is such a big deal beyond just Enphase. And so let me get started through all of the stocks. Let me go through all of the stocks in that spreadsheet and tell you what I think a little bit about them. So the first stock is Tesla. Would anybody want to invest in Tesla for solar? Well, I do believe that this is going to be a moving revenue needle issue here. Because if you want to invest just in solar and you don't believe in the electric vehicle story, then it's very hard to get on board with Tesla and invest in Tesla just for solar, right? Solar is very tiny for Tesla. It's not moving the needle for a very long time. It will not move the needle for a very long time, right? Solar will move the needle for a company like SunPower, which is a $2 billion company, but it's not going to move the needle for an almost $800 billion company. But Tesla, nonetheless, despite having a hard time moving the needle of its revenue because of solar, it's nonetheless the uncontested leader in one major space of solar, which is home energy storage and power walls. Power walls are extremely popular. They are actually sold on the main page of the website. people use Powerwalls are solar symbols in a lot of neighborhoods, and they're extremely popular. But that doesn't even move the needle yet for Tesla, because Tesla makes a bunch of its money from the Model S and the Model Y, Model 3 and Model Y, sorry. So, but anyways, you have exposure to the world of residential solar if you own Tesla. And Tesla makes a lot of great claims about its solar system, and especially its solar tiles, which are supposed to be more resistant, cover the whole roof. They also claim in their brochure for installers that they've produced 33 times more inverters than Enphase and SolarEdge combined. Now, of course, here it's safe to assume that they mean the inverters that are in their cars, right? Because to charge with a plug in the wall, you need an inverter in your car. And so they have expertise in inverters because of the inverters that they put in the Tesla cars. But that doesn't change the fact that you still need to move the needle, and I think solar is not going to be meaningful in the revenue of Tesla for a very long time. Let me now move on to Enphase. So, as you know, on this channel, Enphase is my favorite, one of my top favorite stocks, one of the stocks I discuss the most on the channel. It's a favorite of mine. Enphase is my favorite, and it's my favorite. Why? Because of a microinverter technology. There's two broad technology to turn your electricity that you get on your roof from your PV panels, to turn that DC electricity into AC, alternating current. You need to have an inverter, and there's really two broad technologies. There are string inverters, where you put panels in a string, so you'll put like 12 panels in a single string and connect it back to the inverter. That's string inverters. And then there is microinverters. And I believe microinverters are the superior technology for multiple reasons. They last longer, they are less bulky, there's less appliance type parts that can break, the warranty is longer, they're compliant with code because you can shut off solar at the panel level and not downstairs at the house level. There's many benefits for that, but clearly if someone invests in Enphase, they have to make a decision as to whether they prefer string inverters or micro inverters. Interestingly, while I'm at it, Tesla's inverter uses a hybrid. It's very interesting. It's actually a string inverter, but instead of having two strings like most string inverters, it's a string inverter that has 4 strings. So Tesla's inverter technology is kind of a hybrid between Enphase and SolarEdge, which is very interesting to me. Other things than Enphase, though, that go for Enphase with the technology is they have a leading network of installers, and they're working on a holistic system with batteries, with EV chargers, etc. They're really going for the whole energy independence of your home. They have an app where you can track everything. Enphase really has a lot going for it. And I will note that Enphase, is pretty much at this point a duopoly with SolarEdge, and that's why you even have some investors that buy both stocks, and then that's it. They got solar covered in their portfolio because they buy both stocks, and you see the numbers are pretty similar for SolarEdge and Enphase. Let me move to SolarEdge now. SolarEdge is actually cheaper per my spreadsheet, right? But it's got a slightly lower growth and kind of lower gross margin. So lower gross margin, lower growth, but they're a little bit bigger, which in the grand scheme of things makes them a little bit cheaper for each percentage point of growth. With SolarEdge, you're paying a little bit less than you would be paying for Enphase. And SolarEdge is sticking with string inverters and optimizers. That is the technology that they're using. It's the older solar technology. It's more of a legacy technology, in my view, and really the choice between Enphase and SolarEdge has to do with an investor's opinion on the tech. What is your opinion on this tech? Do you think string inverters are the best, or do you think microinverters are the best? I have seen compelling cases made for both. I personally lean towards Enphase, and that's why I think Enphase is better and the microinverter technology is better. But if someone prefers string inverters, it'd be hard to fault them for owning SolarEdge. But I do not own SolarEdge. And while I'm at it, the only 2 stocks that I own out of all of these is Tesla and Enphase. These are the stocks that I own. Let me now move on to First Solar. So First Solar is, interestingly, a legacy stock. It was founded in 1999 in Ohio. First Solar is a legacy stock. It's known for American-made, commercial quality panels that they use mostly on big installs, mostly in solar fields and in solar roof. And their panel is heavily marketed as a sustainable panel. It's a highly scalable panel. They do a lot of great marketing. Arguably, I mean, to me, and if you're in the solar space, which I've been following this space for a while. Arguably, to me, the first solar panels are the most beautiful looking panels. I mean, it's very subjective, but they are these beautiful black arrays, shiny. It's a very good looking panel. And I guess a comparison you could do is kind of a Rolls Royce of panels in a way. But that's the problem. The reason why I'm not covering any of the PV stocks, of the photovoltaic panel stocks, like, there's other ones, for example, like Jinko is another one, Jinko Solar. The reason why I don't cover them is because it's a commodity. It's a commodity. 8% gross margin after more than 20 years in business. That's the reason why I would not touch any PV panel makers, because when you do an install, the difference is going to be made at the inverter level and the efficiency of that inverter. The difference at the panel level, the technology moves at the same pace. The physics are the same for everybody, and it's very tough to differentiate the panel. It's just kind of like when you go to the gas station and you have a type of gas that's supposedly better, but it's much more expensive. Most people go for the cheap gas. They don't get for the more expensive gas, because at the end of the day, it's just gas. The same is true for solar panels, in my view. At the end of the day, it's just a solar panel, and people don't really care about the looks of their roofs, or they don't really care about the look of their field. Like, roof is not a feature unless you live in like a designer home. But roof is not. It's just not something people are passionate about, and they just want to get the cheapest thing. At least that is my view, and that's why I would stay away from any of the makers of solar panels. Even though kudos to them for being one of the biggest Western manufacturers of solar panels. Kudos to them. That's good for them. Moving on to SunPower. So SunPower is another interesting stock, American company, and they are both a maker and an installer of solar panels. So they're a hybrid. And because they're a hybrid, we're getting that gross margin up a little bit. It's still way down than a pure play provider of hardware to installers like Enphase, right? At 43%, it's halved compared to Enphase, but it's still more than just making solar panels. And so I would argue one of the strengths of SunPower, besides the fact that it's the cheapest stock in this universe of 6 stocks here, it's the cheapest. I think one of the bigger strengths for them is that they're very holistic. They have a full holistic play on residential solar, where they kind of handle the entire value chain, from installing the solar to making the system to making the solar panels. The margin is still low. And one last point that I want to say about SunPower is it's very interesting. So they have their own system, their own batteries, their own software, etc. But they use the microinverters from Enphase. So we have validation from one of the biggest installers of solar in America. We have validation that one of the biggest installers of solar in America has chosen the microinverter technology, and clearly they are insiders to the business, and they've chosen microinverter technology. So kind of think of it that way. It's pretty insane that validation from an expert for the microinverters. I do believe microinverters is the better technology, but that's just me. So, and let me conclude with ARRY Technologies. So ARRY Technologies is a stock that was recommended to me in the comment section of this channel whenever I cover Enphase. And what do? They're a maker of solar panel racks for big installs. They make these racks that you put on your field, and you attach your solar to the rack, and you stake the rack in the ground, and the solar panel rack, you typically have like 10 of them in a line. That line will follow the sun, and so from the waking of the sun to sunset, they will just follow the sun all day, and they claim that you can improve your production by up to 30% by tracking the sun, or at least that's what I've read about them. And you know, that's great. That's great. But there's issues with, I think, investing in array technologies. One of them is that you have a lot of competition from contractors who themselves will have their engineers, their in-house engineers, and they'll develop their own solutions. Or sometimes they'll just decide to not have the panels move. And I'll get to that point in a second. Another problem is that racks, same thing. It's very hard to differentiate a rack, and you have a lot of Chinese-made racks, just like you have a lot of Chinese-made panels, right? It's much easier to Enphase, to differentiate yourself when you're customer facing. If you're Tesla, Enphase, or SolarEdge, your customer's facing. Your customer's going to make a choice. You can differentiate yourself. If you're talking about ARRY technologies, it's tough to create a brand in racks and differentiate yourself in racks. And I guess this would be lesser of a problem. My bigger problem is more of a fundamental problem, is that if you start moving solar panels to track the sun, you're adding one layer of risk, which is a mechanical risk, a mechanical failure. And you know, once you involve motors and screws and gaskets and all sorts of systems, over time you're gonna have failure. That's the whole point. That's why you know, when you do parts, you try to minimize the number of screws, because whenever something moves, you know, those screws over 30 years, they're going to rust, or they're going to unscrew. And there's a bunch of issues whenever you add a mechanical to an issue. Like, for example, mechanical risk is one of the main reasons why I'm against wind turbines. Like, I love the idea of wind turbines, but they don't work because of that mechanical risk, because they move, and because they move, they age really, really poorly. And having a technology that is so pristine like solar, that does not need to move to make energy, and making it fragile by adding a layer of movement to that technology, I just don't think, from a first principles perspective, it's a good idea. It's removing a major strength of solar. You're removing the lack of moving parts, which is a major strength for solar. You're removing that if you add a mechanical risk, even if it increases your production by 30%. And it's noteworthy to say that panels themselves each year get much more efficient. So will panels be 30% more efficient 3 or 4 years from now? Probably, if you look at the curves. And so the question is, what does this technology become? Well, I guess it makes it even more efficient. But at some point, a lot of installers are not constrained by space. They're not limited by space. They're limited by cost, and they're trying to minimize the cost per watt peak. And this increases your cost per watt peak, while you may have a whole bunch of space that you can fill with solar panels. So anyways, in a nutshell, for this one, panels that don't move don't break. That's like the best way I can say it. If they don't move, they don't break. And that's it. This is my coverage of all 6 stocks. This is not investment advice. This is just entertainment. I appreciate your likes. I appreciate your subscribes. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.